You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. My name is Zac Turkel, and I have a very special guest today, all the way from Australia. You may know him as the original Blue Wiggle who loves to eat fruit salad. And after more than 30 years, he's still writing music and performing for the successful children's music group, The Wiggles. We have Anthony Field. Anthony, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Zach. It's good to talk to you, mate, over there in the United States.
Yes, we're out here on Long Island where I saw you back in 2003 at Madison Square Garden with you, Greg, Murray, and Jeff.
Oh, that was an amazing time, mate.
Yeah, that was
amazing. What a great show. I'm so glad you were there.
And then a few years before that, I don't remember this, but when you started, I guess, touring in the U.S., you started performing at shopping malls.
That's right.
Yes, and there's a local shopping mall not too far away from here, and you performed there.
Do you know what shopping mall it was?
It was Broadway Mall in Hicksville.
Yeah, we did. We used to play at little Barnes and Noble shops and things like that, and they were good days too. Always fun, and good thing about those days, we got to talk to parents and the children like one-to-one, unlike the big Madison Square shows where you just do the show and
oh my goodness,
and then off you go.
I want to delve into some of the current things that you're doing with the Wiggles, and the first thing that I wanted to talk about is your new YouTube series. It's called Wiggle and Learn. So what is the idea behind that show, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I guess YouTube, we made a series. We self-funded it, produced it ourselves, and put a lot of work into it. We've got a new lineup of Wiggles. There's 8 Wiggles now.
Yeah, I see that.
Four men, 4 women. I'm the last one of the V8 interceptors left. But Wiggle and Learn is just what it says. It's about having a good time, but learning at the same time. So young children can tune into Wiggle and Learn, and parents know, okay, this is going to be something worthwhile for them, and they're going to have a good time and enjoy, but also learn a few things while having fun.
Definitely. And then I also found out that there was a brand new podcast out as well that you could find on all different streaming services. It's called Wiggle Talk, a podcast for parents, and you're one of the hosts for that show, right? Along with Lockie and Simon.
Yeah, Lockie and Simon host Wiggle Talk, and they're parents of toddlers at the moment, so they're in the coalface. But they bring me in at the end of every episode, what they call Ask Anthony, and just because I'm so old and I've got experience, they might ask me, what do you do when a child has a tantrum in the shopping mall? Or so I come up with an answer, and it's been very successful. We've only had 2 episodes out, but it was the #1 family parenting podcast in Australia, so that was great.
That's cool, yeah. And I think I've seen some advertisements around Times Square that show advertisements for the podcast.
That's right, mate. So it's quite incredible that the people behind it trusted enough to put, an advertisement at the Times Square.
And then the last thing that I want to talk about, which has happened within the last month or so, you released your 100th album, and it's also called Wiggle and Learn, 100 educational songs for children. So how did this album come to be? Is it kind of in relation to the YouTube show?
Absolutely. So much of the music is just straight from the YouTube show. And it is the 100th album. Now, I've produced 99 of those albums.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't produce the 99th album, which was a dance remix album called Raves of Innocence, which was Wiggle music done with electric dance music. And Johnny Pierce, who's in the Wiggles, his brother Lenny, produced it. Because that's not my type of music. But everything else I produced. So I look lovingly back on the 100 albums.
Yeah, and we're going to go into some of those 100 albums, and we're going to go back into a little bit of the history. So you kind of answered it right there. Did you ever expect the Wiggles to release their 100th album?
Mate, no, look, would never have thought we'd do 100 albums. And I think 34 years we've been going, and even if you do 3 or 4 albums a year, that's how we did it. And we put so much work into all those albums. It's a great body of work. Yeah.
So let's go backwards in time to when the Wiggles first started. So you are one of the co-founders of the Wiggles. You're the last remaining original member of the group. And how did that came to be, the idea of the Wiggles?
Yeah, so Murray, myself, and Greg were studying early childhood teaching, and we became teachers, preschool teachers, and we were learning about music in education and theatre in education for young children. And I suppose that's where it all came from. That was a bit of a music project at university, and we did a couple of shows at preschools around Sydney for no other reason, just because we loved it. No money involved, wasn't going to be a career. and it just became so popular. Other preschools would ask, "Oh, can you guys come and sing songs at our preschool?" And then we submitted we made an album and took it to our national broadcaster, and they put it out. Now, of course, the albums in those days were cassette tapes,
Yeah.
or LPs, and then CDs came out. But mate, and then how do we get to America? Well, that's another story.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later because I can't wait to talk about that because that's where I'm from. So I always want to know, how did a group from outside of the U.S. break into international territory? So we're going to definitely go into that. And I also did some research about some of your inspirations behind creating a children's album. Was a very famous children's entertainer. His name is Raffi. Yeah, so you listen to his albums. I used to listen to his albums as well.
Oh, mate, when I was teaching in Sydney, now, not many people in Australia knew Raffi, but you could buy his cassettes. There we go again, cassette tapes.
Yeah.
You could buy the cassette tapes. And I heard him from someone, and I bought all his cassette tapes, Baby Beluga, all those incredible songs. I became a real big fan of Raffi's. And yeah, that's how it came about. And then I thought, well, we're going to do our own music and use him as an inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember in some of the albums, you definitely used some of his songs.
We actually did. We did. You're right. Yeah, we did Bath Time, Shake My Sillies Out, Willoughby Wallaby Woo.
I want to ask you specifically about your favorite Wiggles song. What's your favorite Wiggles song? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, I think it's Rockabye a Bear.
Ah, yes.
Everybody clap, everybody sing, bow to your partner, then you turn around. I think it because it's so good for young children, and a lot of people, for a lot of families, it's the first song they do with their children, and the first song their child learns the actions for. I really love that song. I think it's really appropriate for children.
And your favorite Wiggles video?
Oh, I love a video we did all those years ago, and it's called Wiggle Bay, where we shot it in a beach.
I'd say my favorite Wiggles video. I think I probably like Wiggly Wiggly World, that one from the early 2000s.
Oh, I love that one too.
Yeah, when you had several of the Australian musicians, that was pretty cool.
We did. We had Slim Dusty and Kamal and all these wonderful players. And is that the one where we? Yeah.
It was Taba Naba. That was part of that album. Yeah,
Taba Naba. That was Christina New, and still great mates with Christine, and she still gets asked to sing that at her. She's a contemporary singer as well, and when she does shows, she still gets requests for Taba Naba from people who saw it at the Wiggles.
And I want to go into the technical aspects of songwriting. What was the process behind writing a song? Was there anything specific involved?
Well, I think we always think about the age of our children or their developmental level. So for a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, they'll get excited about some hot potatoes or fruit salad.
Of course.
Whereas if you're writing songs for adults, it's all about love and heartbreak, romance. But children's music's more about the world around them, and they get very excited about, the big red car. They love cars. They love transport. Wheels on the bus. We didn't write that, but, children love those songs about the world around them.
So we're going back a little bit, but when was the moment you realized that this wasn't going to be a one-off album, that this was going to be huge?
Yeah, Zach, the first thing with the boys, we did a couple of shows in the school holidays, and a lot of people turned up, and Murray and Greg said, and Jeff said, mate, we should think about doing this full time. And I really had to think about it because I love teaching so much. So I was a bit hesitant and went, okay, I'll give it a go. So we never thought we were going to be huge, but we thought, okay, we could just go around Australia and do it for a bit of an adventure instead of teaching, I guess. But it was teaching to a bigger classroom, I suppose.
And now it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. You've been kind of teasing it before. We're going to be talking about when you entered the United States. I remember I watched recently in researching for this, Disney got you hooked into performing in the U.S., but also there was a purple dinosaur involved that kind of got you more into the U.S.
That's right. Well, first, I don't know how it happened, but we got on Fox Family Channel, and they got us a residency down at SeaWorld in Florida, and we were there for 2 months playing at the Boogie Bump Theatre, and we'd play 4 times a day. No one knew who we were. I got to tell you, we had the best time ever. We would have water fights with each other after the shows. And we got to meet so many people from the United States, Americans. And at that stage, we had never been to the States before. So it was all brand new, and we were hearing all different language, the different words you guys have for things and different words we have. But it was really good. And then Disney saw us on the Fox Family Channel, and they offered to put our show on, and they put it on 4 times a day, and on the Playhouse Disney. And I think not only did it establish us, but we helped establish Playhouse Disney as well.
Yeah.
It was good for both of us. It was incredibly popular.
Yeah, it
We
sure
never saw
was.
that coming. We never saw that would happen. So we were on Disney for quite a while, and we loved it. It was so good for us, and
Yeah.
we got in front of so many Americans, and they came out and saw us, and the best audiences in the world from the States, the most enthusiastic and loyal fans you could ever hope for.
Yeah, I think the U.S. was probably the Wiggles' second biggest market after Australia, of course. I can just imagine just the culture shock, because you were performing in sold-out arenas in Sydney and Melbourne, and then you come to the U.S., and then you perform in shopping malls, like you mentioned earlier, Barnes & Nobles, Blockbuster. Was that a huge shift?
The great thing about all of us, and I know I'm speaking for the guys, but I know what they'll say, is that we could play in front of 3 children and have just as much fun as 1,000. That's not. I'm telling the truth. Playing children's music and having those big wide eyes, jumping up and down, having fun. Doesn't matter how many they are. You want to give the best show you can, best songs. So that was kind of our attitude.
And was there ever a unique experience that ever happened on tour, whether it was in Australia or the U.S. or somewhere else?
Oh, there was lots, but I think the funniest big star moment was, and I mean literally big star moment, was when Shaquille O'Neal came to the show with all his children, and he had his own red shirt made. And then side stage, his manager came up and said, "Shaq, what's on?" And so who's going to say no to that?
Yeah, my next question is, you mentioned some of the celebrities. You saw Shaq. Was there anybody else that you saw that happened to be a massive Wiggles fan at the time?
Well, there was quite a few. At the one show, we had Jerry Seinfeld, this in New York, Ricky Lake.
Okay.
We had Robert De Niro, Chris Rock.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's quite a few. Years later, Chris from Coldplay,
Uh-huh.
Chris came to Australia and played Fruit Salad Yummy Yummy. He invited us to his show. Now, I'm so out of touch. I didn't even know who Coldplay were. So I went to the show, and it was an amazing show. And mate, he sang Fruit Salad Yummy Yummy. You can find it on YouTube.
Wow, I'm going to have to
Coldplay
check that
singing.
out.
It's quite funny. So that was a big moment.
So when you're not recording and when you're not touring, are there any fun things that you like to do during your spare time?
I've got a boat, and I love to go out of the heads, the ocean in Australia. Like I love boating around. Also, I just love playing music. So I play folk music in a group called the Unusual Commoners, and we get together. You know, I just love music still.
It's funny because I remember a lot of TV shows portray this. A lot of children's hosts put on a happy face, but then when they're behind the scenes, they're always angry and bitter. But, you know, that's kind of not the reality.
Funny you say that, Zach, because all the Wiggle guys, honestly, have all been genuinely loving what they do, and off stage exactly the same. But we, in the early days of Wiggle touring, we toured with other artists, and there was one Australian artist who didn't actually like children. And so, not for the Wiggles, he was his own solo singer. And that was a real education for us, because we made sure when people come into the Wiggles, the first thing we say to them is, we respect our audience. We don't make jokes about our audience. We want them to feel like we accept them exactly as they are. And that was a good lesson for us, that there are bitter people who shouldn't be performing children's music.
You're right. I think there has to be a certain process involved where, okay, you're going to be in front of kids. You also have to have a lot of patience involved as well, because let's say you're maybe doing maybe a meet and greet before or after the show, and they're all crowding right in front of you. You got to have a lot of composure and a lot of patience, you know, to handle that.
Well, I think being early childhood teachers is actually management skills. If you've got the management skills, then those frustrated moments for the children don't happen as much. So at a show, this guy I was talking about before, he would ask the children to sit down. Now, we ask the children to stand up and have a good time. If they're dancing in the aisles, that's great, because they're being children. So at a meet and greet, you know, have it worked out so they don't have to, you know, it's all orderly and they don't get frustrated. They know and if it gets too long a line, go out into the line and go and say hello and say, we'll be there soon.
Now, recently, I know you've done this a few years ago. Now, it's been strictly in Australia. You have been doing some OG Wiggle shows with Greg, Murray, and Jeff. How has that been?
They have been the best, some of the best, I guess, occasions of our lives. to see people like yourself, Zach, who grew up with the Wiggles, coming to a show, reliving their childhood, but they might have a few adult beverages while they're watching,
I'm sure.
and that's fine too.
Yeah.
And they're having a great time, and there's a lot of love for the Wiggles, and there's just as much love for our audience
Yeah.
that goes back into the audience. So these shows, they're just so special, mate. Yeah.
Since they haven't came to the U.S. yet, I've been watching them on YouTube, and it just looks like it's so much fun. The adults are jumping up and down and singing fruit salad, and it just seems like a great atmosphere at that time.
Oh, mate, we'd love to come over to the States. We should do it,
That'd be
really
amazing. If an OG show ever happens here on Long Island, count
Mate,
me in. I'll definitely be there.
Thank you. Mate, you bring the microphone and speak to the boys.
I'll interview them and we'll do another one. Yes, definitely, Anthony. Yeah, so I want to talk about, before you go, a little bit of some personal questions, because I've always wanted to know about an artist. What got them into music? Were there any artists that you liked particularly growing up?
Yeah, well, my mum encouraged us so much to be musicians. My first instrument was violin, and I was in the school orchestra. So I guess my first idol of music was my mum.
Oh, okay, nice.
She played piano, and she just played all the time. So I'd say she's the biggest inspiration. And she also made sure that we knew that it doesn't matter if you're playing music, you can own music by listening to it, by dancing to it. Just have music as part of your life, and you'll always have a friend there.
I want to ask you kind of a challenge question: is if there's a musician living or not, who would you like to perform with?
I think, Merle Haggard, the great country singer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I love him, and Elvis is my Elvis.
Yes, Elvis.
He is like the my total idol, man. I wouldn't want to play on stage with him. I just want to watch.
I think that's pretty much what everybody would want to do, just to see him live on stage.
Just to see the man.
Him or the Beatles or Freddie Mercury, you just want to see live on stage.
So true, mate. Yeah. So true. And Freddie Mercury, what a talent.
Since you're from Australia, and another thing about me is that I love looking at music charts from around the world. There are, everyone knows Australian bands that did make it here in the U.S. Of course, you guys, Men at Work, AC/DC, Kylie. There are probably some others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But is there one specific Australian band that you think probably didn't get enough recognition, maybe internationally, but they're huge in Australia?
AC/DC, In Excess, all those groups were incredible. But there was a group that we used to tour around with, and you probably would never heard of them, but they were called Mental as Anything. And I think they wrote the
Anthony,
best
I
songs.
know one of their songs. Did they do Live It Up?
That's it,
Okay.
Live It Up. Yeah, and I was really good mates. Greedy Smith was the guy who wrote Live It Up, and Greedy passed away last year. We just miss him so much. But they should have been massive around the world. They were so good, and they're artists as well, like visual artists.
Wow.
They paint, and really great band.
You mentioned earlier about music. It doesn't matter if you play it or own a copy of an album. What do you prefer? Because everything now, is on your phones. Everything is streaming nowadays. Do you still like having a physical copy of an album and like maybe putting a needle down on a record player or popping in a CD?
You can't beat it.
Yeah.
I love getting that album, putting it on the record player, laying down with a pillow, reading the notes on the album cover, the liner notes, looking at the picture while you're listening to them.
I kind of want to go into the future. Where do you think the Wiggles will be in, let's say, 5 years from now? Do you have any predictions on what you think could happen?
Well, we've just got such a great bunch now. We're gender balanced, talented. They're all talented, good people. I just, we've got a more diverse lineup. The bottom line is that communicating with children, and I just want them to keep going and keep communicating with children. I hope I'm still around, but it's been great, mate.
But I won't keep you on a little bit longer, Anthony. But I just want to let you know that I'm sure you got this many times before. You were my first concert that I've ever been to. I hate to say it, it's the only concert I've ever been to since.
Oh, mate, thank you, buddy. That's great, mate. Mate, we still love it. We're just lovely to hear that, mate. I hope we can come over and do those OG shows. You're coming backstage, mate.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. And then we'll do the actual interview live with all four of them. And I mean, probably the one thing I'd probably do is just shake your hand and just say thank you. You know, thank you for making my childhood great, having all the VHS tapes. It just seemed you guys had such a fun time, and I certainly enjoyed watching those videos. So just to say thank you to all four of you guys would have been just an amazing.
Oh, good on you, mate. And I'll pass that on. And I hope,
100%,
Zach,
yes.
great to talk to you, mate. I
Great
better
to
get
talk
back to
you,
the old
Anthony.
filming.
Yes, have fun with that. I hope I was able to put you off for a little bit. Get
I
a
loved
little
it.
relaxation.
Loved it. You got me out of a lot of choreography.
Yes, definitely. All righty. Thank you, Anthony. I really
Good
do
on you, Zach.
appreciate it.